Cronin Toyota and Cronin Nissan are honored to partner with Proudly We Served, as well as the continued support of our local active and retired military veterans across eastern Indiana.
I'm Al Bledsoe, Veterans of Foreign War, Post 1108.
I'm Ron Chappell, Chaplain for Vietnam Veterans, Chapter 777, here in the beautiful city of Richmond. And our guest this morning is Representative Brad Barrett.
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation.
And boy, we're just
good to
getting
see you
a
again.
wealth of information here today.
Yeah, if you saw the first part of this segment, man, I tell you, it's just loaded. So hopefully we can kind of lay some of this stuff out so you can get it and understand it.
Let's talk a minute about the crisis line, the veteran crisis line. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, so what we've done is in the state of Indiana recognized that mental health's becoming more recognized as an issue. Mm-hmm. You hear it talked about during the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
One of our gymnasts from a couple of years ago talked about the stress and some of the mental weight on their shoulders.
Yeah.
Here they are, the greatest athletes in the world, and we also hear about it in some of the other sports, but it's a real problem in our veterans community. It's a real problem in our community as a whole.
Right.
So we've tried to recognize that, that hey, it's okay to talk about it, it's okay to deal with it. Let's try to dedicate resources so that there are numbers that we can call. There's special lines for veterans. One of our websites through Indiana government, we talked about the Division of Veterans Affairs.
Right.
There are connections on any of these websites where you can get access numbers and then know where to call so that there's always someone available. There's a number to call, there's someone to answer, there's services to offer, and there's places to go for our veterans and really for our community as a large. But there's been many things that we've singled out. Our veterans is recognizing that this is a unique and a special group of people, and they have unique and special needs and concerns outside of the general population, and that we have programs specifically tailored to them.
Sure.
So,
Am I reading this wrong? It looks like InVets is not just in Indiana. We started it, and now it's in North Carolina and other
there's
places
many
they're
states
talking
that have gotten on board with this stuff.
Yeah.
I'd love to tell you Indiana's the only one, but there's many states that have done it. But I think the InVets labels for Indiana. But yeah, there's, I mean, all over. States that have active military bases and a greater population of veterans. I think, boy, it's on their front page every day, and so there's an awareness. It's Midwestern states like Indiana that say, hey, we produce a fair share. I think I saw somewhere where we have 21,000 active service members from the state that claim the state of Indiana. Does that number sound like it would be right? There's a lot of numbers being thrown around. But we wanted to create an environment where that Indiana's a great place to live and work for the general population, but also for our veterans. So there's mental health services. The last legislative session, we have given tax relief to active service members so that their military pay and pensions don't have Indiana tax associated with it. And like you said, other states doing this. I think there's 8 or 10 other states that do that same thing. That's a group that we want to be a part of.
Can that tax thing be grandfathered? Get that?
Well, there's a list of benefits that are out there, and any of these taxing things, we struggle a little bit. The tax is less the more people that are included in it. And every little special interest group that you single out, there's 100 great causes out there. veterans being the greatest.
Yeah.
But there's 100 great causes out there.
You got to have the loudest voice.
Well, you got the elderly, you got the
Yeah.
disabled, you
Sure.
have, the youth that are disabled. You have all these categories of people, and the more you select out, then the lower base there is really then for the tax base for the rest of the community. So I know in the past Indiana's been highly selective on who they carve out, because if we could keep it low for everybody or reasonable for everybody, there's always an argument over how you define those terms, but why don't we make it a good place for most people to live and work?
I tell people, I said, listen, if it wasn't for that veteran, he or she giving their time and service, you might not have been able to enjoy the freedom that you have if it hadn't been for him or her. So that veteran should be given the utmost consideration in any treatment that he or she may need that came about as a result of their service.
I think we do that, but I think in the bigger scheme of things, I think the world, if you will, is away from that. It's not, Washington, if we looked at the national part of it, we've gotten away from that. Veterans are, I think we're a force to reckon with, but I don't think we have as much clout as we used to have. I think there's other things entered it.
It can always be better. We talked
sure.
earlier just in conversation.
Well, I think you guys, the state, is very proactive, veterans. I mean, with the state of Indiana, I think we get a lot of things done, I think.
We're really making an effort. We talked earlier about just how Vietnam vets weren't welcomed back into their communities. And then think what happened after September 11th. And there was just a patriotism that got reignited. And I hope there was like a benefit that fell back on our Vietnam vets, that they felt like there's a resurgence of pride in service. Because I got that sense that happened.
My wife and I have been out maybe to a restaurant or something, and I love wearing my hat. And somebody will come over to my table and say, "So you're a vet, huh?" "Yes, sir." They'll take my tab, say, "Better pay for your meal."
Would that have happened 30 years ago?
Oh, heck no. Yeah. They're throwing the food at me.
Yeah, so I think there's a trend on that, but man, I tell you, the federal level, I can't even watch the news. My philosophy is it starts local, It starts in your local veterans community. I know we have a county service officer, and we have an active post, and we have, you guys are representative, 2 guys in the community that are pro-veteran and advocating for veterans. We have the most beautiful park in the state.
In the country.
Exactly.
I've traveled, man, I'm telling you.
It's such a special place. So I think you get caught at the federal level, and you're one of 100 million. In the city level, the state level. To me, that's where make your impact known. At local government, smaller government, and then hopefully you get state after state, community after community that starts doing that thing, and you create an environment that it would be nice if some of the stuff that happened at the federal level, if they learned from what we can do at the at the city level or the state level, county level.
But I think the problem is a lot of those guys, it just seems like the ego's so big that they can't really reach down and help people. They get away from that. For some reason, as a country, we've got away from that. Our state is good, and I wish our country was in tune with stuff like the state of Indiana is, because I think we're very disciplined from our leadership. I think we've done a good job of that.
Well, we talked about it on an earlier program where, at our governor, we have multiple senators and representatives that served in the military. Are in the House, our chairman of our Veterans and Public Safety Committee is a veteran. And I can think of, 6, 8 others right off the top of my head, and I think there's more that kind of play a quieter role, but and they have clout, they have power. It's the things that we do are typically done with a consensus opinion at the state, and you know, we're never satisfied with where we are. We always have this idea that we can do a little bit more, just take it a little bit further. A lot of the things aren't like headline worthy, but what I find is you make small changes. You don't eat the apple in one bite. You know, you work on it. You're working around it. You're taking you do a little thing here, you do a little thing there. In the 6 years I've been on, I know we've done things that have reduced fees for hunting and fishing licenses for disabled vets. There's credits you get on your vehicle registration. There's some home deductions you get as a disabled veteran. There's some college and tuition programs that we give to disabled veteran children and to Purple Heart children, and or the children of a Purple Heart recipient. And they get, children of Purple Heart recipient can get free tuition at a state institution. And I think that's 15 or 20 schools throughout the state. You get credit at a private institution, you know, or a tuition reduction. So these are things we do quietly, year after year after year, that that each little bit is not huge, but collectively creating an environment to recognize and attract veterans in our communities.
Yeah, and we gotta keep finding ways to disseminate this information out to these veterans.
That's the hardest part.
I know. The PAC Act, for example, you know, I'm still finding guys who know nothing about it. Nothing.
The PAC Act was designed by the government. I think it was a good thing.
With the PAC Act?
No.
Okay. It was designed to go back. You can go in and any issue you had during your service that you were not given benefit for, you can be given benefits for it.
Yeah.
Am I right?
I was, the PACT Act, I had never thought of disability because I feel like I'm in good health.
Oh, yes.
But I've got a problem with hypertension. And so when it come up with the PACT Act of hypertension, the doctor from the VA, which had been my doctor for a couple of years, he called me, he said, "Are you going to apply for that?" And I said, "Well, I don't think so." He said, "It fits your profile." He said, "If anything fits your profile, that does."
Well, it goes back to that discussion.
And they did it awarded it in less than 10 days.
It goes back to that discussion, though, about pride and service to the country, and then feeling like you're taking advantage of that, where in reality you're getting your due for that.
Exactly.
I work with a veteran in the State House, and he was in the Korean conflict and exposed to Agent Orange, and now, you know, how many years later he's having health problems that are service connected, but there's a lot of pride there, and to say that, you know, hey, there's help out there for you. He had not taken advantage of that up to this point. And if we got a system in place to help facilitate that for our veterans, then they should take advantage of that.
Well, I think they're getting, I think the VA is I'm a proactive person when it comes to the VA and the way they do medically with people and stuff. I think they've just come a long ways in the last 5 years. I feel like they give me too much attention. You know,
that's a good problem to have.
Well, I mean, they just today I almost was late because I've got this problem with blood pressure, and so they called and said, "Well, we want to put you on this machine, and electronically through Bluetooth, we can watch your blood pressure." And I'm thinking, okay, so, but you got to agree to it. And that's why I told him, I said, you know, I don't know whether I'm disciplined enough to do that.
You think your blood pressure goes up being on this program?
Probably not.
It's been very relaxing.
Well, you know, it's very. I mean, I'm just
initially.
Initially, but it. No, I'm relaxed. It's just I've just got to be moving all the time, and so And that's what he said. And I said, I just don't know whether I'm disciplined enough to sit there for 30 minutes. But he said, the thing of it is, you won't have to do it because I've got a problem with blood pressure. Mm-hmm. And so we thought this would be a way that would help you where you don't have to worry about it so much. All you got to do is put the cuff on, we'll do everything else.
That's right.
So I'm thinking, okay.
Yeah, they give it to them.
But it's I've got a thing coming down the pike with IU that I've got to get the blood pressure down, and I don't know quite how I'm going to do that. But
well, we talked
I take
earlier.
a lot of medication now for it, but it don't.
We talked earlier how I always felt like my biggest regret was not serving my country, and when I did my training at IU, one of our true honors and privileges was working at the Veterans Hospital. Did many rotations through the Veterans Hospital, and that was in the late 80s, so we still had a lot of our World War II veterans, and we were just starting to see Vietnam veterans, in that health group as they were getting older, and that was the greatest experience, taking care of those individuals. And we talked about pride. My dad was in the Navy, and he was on a LST, and he likely got asbestos exposure in that, and eventually died of pulmonary fibrosis. But I tell you, he was proud. He was a proud man. And if you get on the internet and you do a search for LSTs, you know what comes up? Asbestos attorney websites. And my dad, before he died, emphasized that he wasn't interested in getting involved in that stuff.
I had to ride on one.
Yeah, he served, and that was his. He did not expect. He was not going to accept a benefit. That was, that's a generation ago, and he wasn't gonna take.
How long did he serve?
He was 4 or 5 years, I think, overall in the 50s. But he was very proud of that. His tombstone, he's got 4 words written on his tombstone. I mean, outside of his name and all. God, service, country, family. Those were his 4. Those were his 4 things. And I tell you, he lived his life in full respect of those 4 pillars.
That's awesome.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
that's the kind of stuff we need to get back to, though. I mean, we need to get a little bit closer. We've gotten so far away from stuff like that, and it's just it's mind-boggling when you listen to what goes on in the world today, the news and everything. With all the attacks that we're having with Israel, and that's kind of a different conversation, but at the same time, that's a very heated conversation about what's right and what's wrong there.
Well, when you feel like the world's caving in, drive down to that beautiful Veterans Park.
Okay.
That's right.
And on a day where there's not a ceremony or some display down there, just get out of the car and look around and
take a deep breath.
Yeah, it makes you realize that.
That's right.
Man, we get the greatest country in the world, and it's because of this sacrifice and this dedication of all these people that created that. So, look up, look down. Things are good here in Indiana, in the Midwest.
Buy a veteran a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
At least.
At least.
Coffee.
At least a cup of coffee. So.
But now also Wright-Patterson provides services to veterans in this area as well. So
I remember when I was dealing with the VA system, it was sometimes hard to determine which system they were eligible in, whether it was the Indianapolis system or the Dayton system. And I know that's been 25, 30 years ago. I remember we even went through a period of time where it was hard. The Veterans Hospital, the Veterans Healthcare system was under great unrest. Remember that time? It probably was 20 years ago. And, we have that local clinic here that I think gained, they became bigger and more involved in the community. And I remember our own medical practice said, if there's any trouble getting into one of these veterans hospitals, we'll see you anytime. We'll open the doors and get you in there as fast as we can. And they went to a little information system where the patients there was the first system where the patients were bringing in discs that had their studies on them. so you could get all the studies that had done in one of the systems and put it in your computer and look at their X-rays and get their lab tests, and that was a great benefit, ahead of its time, the VA system in reality. So
they've done pretty good. I mean, they're pretty good at their blood tests and all the tests you've got to do. They seem to be really good at that. Or with me, they have anyway.
Yeah, they are. And other, I mean, veterans have a host of opportunities or services available medically. The READ system here, I mean, they are just great in dealing with veterans. I know when I have to go out there, they don't give me no hassle, you know, and just come right on in. They take care of business.
that's good to hear.
And then they got a good connection with the VA, you know, and the VA will call me and say, hey, we see you went to READ, you know, we want to see with your primary care person and the results of that visit, and we'll go over that. And, and I don't get a bill.
Yeah, that's the nice part. But it's just nice to have those resources available locally, because Al, you and I have talked about the trouble it is veterans getting to some of these places, and transportation, and that's something we got to dig into a little bit deeper, because I think you said there were some other states that have done some things to help facilitate transportation. We have some of that through our Medicaid system, but you know, not all veterans obviously are on that insurance, and so something we need to pay attention
It's just if guys will use it, there's just a wealth of benefits if they'll use it. And it goes back to what we talked about last session, is just getting the veteran to acknowledge that. So what about the Family Relief Fund? We didn't talk about that very much. So
yeah, I think that Family Relief Fund, I mean, the volume of stuff we deal with is huge, so I don't have the exacts. If I'm not mistaken, is that done through the Department of Veterans Affairs in Indiana?
It is.
And it's funded primarily through license plate.
Yeah, it is.
That's where the revenue comes from. So you want a military plate on your vehicle, there's an added charge. That money goes through our Indiana Department of Veterans Affairs. And then they've created this Family Relief Fund. And I was absolutely blown away when I learned the balance in that fund, that money that's in there. And yet it's created to help these families. Once you get a pocket of money like that, everyone comes with the greatest cause ever to tap those funds. So I know it's been a real challenge of our Veterans Committee to make sure that they respect the money that's in there, try to use it for the best causes. The helping veterans with burials, with funeral services, short-term income. I'm not up to speed 100% on all the little things that they can use that fund for, but it's been a great resource, and the fact that it comes from that license plate revenue, it's amazing to me.
Joe DeVito is a big proponent of that. He is the head guy for IDVA for our region or our section, and he's just he has a wealth of information like that. He knows who's giving it and who's actually using it. But that was brought up a couple of years ago, the relief fund back. Thinking Alan Paul, when Alan Paul was still senator. It was brought up.
It's somewhat dated now, though, in that.
But they brought it up to date, brought it up to speed, where they have a way of. Well, I think they have a way of checking you, though. They just don't give it to anybody and everybody.
I deal with a lot of bereaved families, you know, and veterans and that. And I want to tell you, the financial assistance they get from that program is insufficient. The average funeral is $9,000.
And I think there's up to 5,000 in that fund. Isn't there up to 5,000 per family in that fund, which covers half of it? And that's probably basic.
But you got to go to a lot of
Maybe that's why the veteran community, a lot of people are choosing cremation over
Well,
a
we just
normal
need a good
funeral.
guy to work, get in there and
Yeah.
get that thing straightened out. That's
Well,
all.
you know, part of this whole idea of being on here is not just to listen to me talk, but me listen to you guys talk about what's going on in the veterans community and what things are important.
Yeah.
But I know there's been great effort to make sure that there are funds available in there for, you know, now we got aging population. So the average age of our veterans is getting higher every year.
Sure.
And then inflation, you know, what may have been a good cause 10 years ago at $5,000 now hasn't increased with as inflation has
With
increased.
inflation, you just,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
not.
You get less for more right now is what's happening, you know. Maybe this is something that we need to revisit and look at.
Yeah.
See.
I was just saying we got about 2 minutes left. Anything in particular that you want to get out there?
Well, I just think that there's a ton of resources available through, I think they're flashing a website on the TV as we've done this, through IGA, that's Indiana General Assembly, .in.gov, and then just indiana.gov/veterans, or indiana.gov/DVA, Department of Veterans Affairs.
Yeah.
I was on those sites this morning, and it's so organized as in links you can click. You know, problem is not all of our veterans are probably savvy on the computer, and so we have our resource officers, we have the Post, we have just the veterans community where we can spread the word, and programs like this make people aware that there are things out there.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the family, the offspring of a veteran that can help them connect to some of these things if they can't do it themselves.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a real pleasure having you today.
Again,
This has been a good one. So
We need to make this a
real
annual-
informative.
No, I'm honored to share this information with you guys. And,
Sure.
and if it's a regular thing, I am honored going down to the park and giving a talk through this position that I hold in the state. And I'd like to be a good advocate for our veterans in
Sure.
the community.
Well, I think
Great.
I think you are. So
great.
that's good. So
All right.
with that, we're going to say goodbye.
Thank you, sir, for
Thank you.
coming. Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
That was
Yes.
easy. It goes fast.
All right. Well, folks, we got to get out of here. And so
See ya.
thank you for watching Proudly We Serve.
Cronin Toyota and Cronin Nissan are honored to partner with Proudly We Served, as well as the continued support of our local active and retired military veterans across eastern Indiana.